Mother, tell your children not to walk my way. Tell your children not to hear my words, what they mean, what they say.
Hello all, and this video will be kind of a response to my last video. As someone pointed out that I've never really done a video explaining why I come on here and love Ring of Honor so much. So I thought I would come on here and actually talk about that a bit. I talked about it in some of my earlier vids, kind of, but never a complete vid. So yeah, let's talk about this. To understand why I love Ring of Honor so much, you've got to go back to the beginning, and not the beginning of Ring of Honor, which was 2002, but back to 1992 with ECW. That's when ECW started. I got on the internet in 1994. Soon after they had split from the NWA, and that was a big deal at the time. When I first got on the internet and was learning about wrestling and kind of absorbing all of this stuff that I thought I knew about wrestling, confirming what I knew about wrestling, what I didn't know about wrestling, all that stuff, one thing that kept coming up was ECW. And to the point that when I finally was in chat rooms and talking to guys, and people kept recommending these ECW shows, that I went to ROH Videos, because that's where you went to get ECW shows, and I ordered some. It was the first internet purchase ever made. Ordered 6 tapes, I believe, and that pretty much started it. You know, I loved ECW. I love the fact, not so much the matches. The matches weren't always great, but the fact that it was something different. The fact that it was not WCW and not WWE or WWF and what they were giving us at the time. And also the fact that through that I started getting into Japanese wrestling, because I was a huge Great Muta fan, and I noticed that there were these tapes that had the Great Muta on them, and so I started buying them as well, and just from there it just escalated, where, you know, I started getting into All Japan and all of these other things. But you know, I continually followed ECW. I can remember very vividly Barely Legal. That was just an amazing event. If none of you have ever seen that pay-per-view, I recommend getting One Night Stand 2, that DVD, because it comes with Barely Legal, and checking that out, because it's an amazing show. It really is. I think it still holds up very well today, and it's something I think everybody should see. It's one of my favorite, and what I think is one of the best pay-per-views of all time, and I really believe that. And considering this was ECW's first pay-per-view, that speaks volumes about the company. Of course, soon after that, ECW started going downhill due to talent raids and whatnot. But and then in 2001, they filed for bankruptcy, and that additionally led to Ring of Honor, because out of, you know, ECW's ashes, kind of Ring of Honor started, because of RF Video. RF Video's biggest seller, the thing they made the most money on, was the ECW videos. And with ECW gone, they needed a replacement. And none of the other organizations that they sold, none of the other indie feds that they sold, really looked like it was going to work. And so they decided, Rob Feinstein, who was the head of RF Video, decided he was going to start his own company. And so that's what happened. And Ring of Honor was born, and they decided not to go the hardcore route, which you already had IWA Mid-South, CZW, and a few others. XPW, I think, had just started up as well, all going around. So they decided to be different, the same way that ECW was different back in the day. And because everyone that was there understood that that's what sold ECW. It wasn't the wrestling. The wrestling wasn't always great. The wrestling was okay usually, but it was that it was different, and it was something that the fans could latch on to. Well, the fans had gotten smarter, and the fans that were ECW fans were, you know, very much into Japanese wrestling, very much into that style, and so they started bringing in the best indie workers from around the country and had them go at it in a very in a style like that. And as soon as Ring of Honor started, it pretty much started getting praised right away from a lot of the internet folks and the internet wrestling community. I didn't get into it right away because it was through RF Video, and I had some bad experiences with RF Video. Well, eventually, RF Video and Ring of Honor parted ways for alleged reasons, allegedly, and So yeah, and so from then I started getting a little bit more into Ring of Honor. Though I had bought some stuff. I bought Final Battle 2003, I believe that's the one with Muda on it, and a few other, and the Liger matches as well, because I was a huge Liger fan as well. So and that's kind of how I got into Ring of Honor, and I started following Ring of Honor, and but I really wasn't on the internet very much. I had stopped, going to chat rooms. I wasn't really posting on any message boards really. I was following wrestling a little bit, but it was pretty much just Ring of Honor. I'd catch a Raw, and I was aware of TNA, and I was, following TNA to some extent. And then as Ring of Honor continually got better and better, and I felt was just really had become literally the heir apparent of ECW, in my opinion, and everything that I thought ECW would have become. Because if you watch the later ECWs, it was evident that Paul was bringing in guys who were definitely going to wrestle a more technical style. It was going to be a lot more of what Ring of Honor first started out being, with less hardcore, more in-ring action, and that sort of thing. I also like the fact that the storylines were simple, and they were simple because this guy hated this guy, and they were going to wrestle, and they were going to have a good match. I like that. The fact that the more complex storylines were very good and very well thought out and made a lot of sense to me. And so and it really started to bug me that I would come on here and a lot of message boards and whatnot, and people just were not talking about Ring of Honor, to the extent of when I got on the internet, people were talking about ECW. And Ring of Honor, has been around for 5 years now, and no one talks about it to the extent that ECW was talked about, 2-3 years into its existence. And it really, really bugs me to no extent, because I do feel it is the best promotion in the world, due to the fact that, as I said, thanks to ECW, I became a big fan of Japanese pro wrestling. And Japanese pro wrestling right now sucks. It really does. I mean, you're doing good for the most part if you can get 2 4-star matches out of a Japanese promotion, which to me just is ludicrous. I mean, that's something you would expect out of WWE, who isn't focused so much on in-ring ability, but entertainment. And here's Japanese wrestling, which for the most part we believed for a long time was more about in-ring ability, less about entertainment. So though due to MMA, they're kind of having to change that a bit. But anyways, and then the All Japan Noah split and all that. I mean, Japanese wrestling is just really bad right now, so it's very hard to follow. But here we have Ring of Honor, who I do feel is the best promotion in the world. I do feel is putting on the best matches all the time. Who I do feel just goes out there and puts on just incredible shows. I mean, if you just go back and look at all the shows that they put on, they're just what I feel are good, are things I would recommend anybody to buy. Would just boggle your mind. There's probably at least 50 DVDs that you go out there and buy. I mean, that's a ton of DVDs for 5 years. That's an average of 10 DVDs a year. And again, it was the fact that no one was talking about them, no one was kind of championing them, no one was, even what I saw on YouTube, Moral was one of the few people and that really talked about Ring of Honor, and no one really did. And here I am in Texas, where Ring of Honor has never been, probably will not be for at least 2 more, maybe 3 more years, and I'm on here championing them and no one else is. And so, and I felt the same way on a lot of message boards too. I was the only one really talking about them. And due to that, the fact that I do think they are the best, and due to the fact that I think they are putting on something different, and the fact that I do think they're putting on that if they are successful, they will put on a valid alternative. That's the big thing to the WWE, and what the WWE has put on for years is important to me, and I think would make the wrestling industry better, because that's how you compete with the WWE. You should put on something that is different from the WWE to make a name for yourself. And then you can get more into the sports entertainment aspect if you have to bring in fans. But as long as you keep to being an alternative and giving something different from what the WWE is doing, and now TNA is doing as well, I think that is something that we all should support. And I think that's something that we all should, try to look after. And I'm glad that, the people that have messaged me and said, hey, I did check out Ring of Honor, I loved it. Thank you so much. It meant a lot to me. I really appreciate it. So that's why I'm on here, and have a good one.